What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Week 16 NFL Power Rankings, coming off a just wild weekend of football. We say that a lot, but seriously, I woke up this morning ready to sit down and watch these games, and I was like, what the hell happened this weekend? One of the just craziest weekends of NFL action you'll ever see. So going to be a fun episode to get into what all the madness means here as we look forward. Before we do get started, if you could take a real quick second and hit that like button down below, it actually really helps me out. Again, just takes a second, so thank you. Make sure you're subscribed as well for more football content. We've got the quarterback and edge rush power rankings coming on Friday. I'm going to be talking about those position groups. That'll be fun. And if you guys did not see my video from last Friday, it is some of my most proud work, and the feedback from you guys has been incredible. A lot of you that have watched it enjoyed it, but please do check out my film breakdown from last Friday regarding the spread of Vic Fangio style defenses around the league and why it has not really been this defensive nourishment being spread to the league, and why a lot of these teams running Fangio systems have struggled. Something I've talked a lot about throughout the season, putting it to a bit of a video essay format. Go check it out. Link in the description below. But let's get into it, starting in the cellar dweller tier. No movement at the bottom, though the Houston Texans the last couple weeks have been very competitive against great football teams. Dallas last week, the Chiefs this week, and this week they came even closer to pulling it off, fumbling the punt in overtime. They're feisty, they're scrappy, and if they keep doing this, maybe they will sneak out of the 32 spot, but I still think it's warranted. This is not a team with a winning formula, even if they are getting close. Then we have the Chicago Bears at 31. Talk about a lack of a winning formula. Just more of the same, right? This defense just can't hang. Even when Jalen Hurts throws to the ball to their defense a couple times, they're still going to give up 30 points. But Justin Fields, spectacular, competitive again this week, but again, not a winning formula. Then at number 30, we have the Indianapolis Colts coming off blowing the largest lead in the history of the NFL. I was at that game and it was insane. But for the Colts perspective, did I walk out of that game feeling impressed at all that they got up 33-0? No, I didn't. You have two interceptions by the Vikings where Jalen Reagor just blows his assignment. You have a fumbled by Dalvin Cook. You have a blocked punt touchdown. You have you do have a fourth down stop. Good on the Colts for that one. It was the total avalanche, everything that could go wrong game for the Vikings. And the second things kind of stopped being out of their control there, the talent differential couldn't have been any more apparent. And that comeback, while incredible, wasn't incredibly surprising based on how bad the Colts really were playing. And I wasn't impressed by their defense. I wasn't impressed by their offense. And now they lost Jonathan Taylor for the year. So cool, you got up 33-0 in Minnesota. It didn't last. And looking forward, I still think this team sucks. Then we have the Arizona Cardinals at number 29, not getting a whole lot better here. I will shamelessly hold my hand up and say this was the first game of the year. I could not care less to watch this game live, to watch it back today. I didn't watch this game. I'm not going to watch this game. If that bothers you, I don't know what to tell you. Brett Rippon versus Colt McCoy. I'm good, man. I'm good. So they're going to drop down 2. I have no idea what happened in that game. This team's terrible. Then the LA Rams at number 28. I will say they are putting up a little bit more fight defensively. They have a little bit of spirit with them, with Baker Mayfield coming in. But Baker, turnover prone, and that offensive line is a disaster. It has been since the first week of the season. That really has defined their year. And then the Denver Broncos, I'm kind of looking forward to watching them get Russ back next week. They put up 24 this week. Again, a game I did not watch. Don't care to watch how it happened, but they have been a little bit better these last couple of weeks. And I've been kind of saying the last few weeks that while this season is lost, they're showing some signs that it's not full-on complete disaster, doom and gloom for next year. And getting Russ back, hopefully next week, can continue to build into that. But now we're going to have a tier gap up into 5 teams coming up here that are still bad football teams, but I think have a certain ceiling that is clear-cut better than the teams we just discussed. That starts with the Atlanta Falcons, unable to get the job done against the Saints. They are taking a punt, so to speak, on the rest of this season. Even though the NFC South is such a disaster, they recognize their own inconsistencies and how far away really the roster talent is here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They put in Desmond Ridder, and we didn't really think it was going to be worse than Marcus Mariota, and it wasn't necessarily way worse, but it certainly was not pretty. So they're still evaluating Desmond Ridder, and that's really all this is about for them. Then the Carolina Panthers, what a disappointing week, unable to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. All the talk about how the Panthers control their destiny and how they could maybe win the NFC South. This has been the most week-to-week roller coaster team. They are very matchup dependent. They're capable of having good performances because they have playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. They do run the ball well, but when those things aren't lining up, this is just not a good football team, and that's where you see the inconsistencies there. So season's not done, but you just don't know what you're getting from this team any given Sunday. Then the New Orleans Saints at 24, getting the job done in Atlanta. Andy Dalton just continues to play well. What a respectable season he's had. The defense has played so much better, really, over the last 2 months of the season. I can't really do this all the way, and maybe this ranking is a little bit disingenuous. I don't know. The Saints have certainly not been the model of consistency, and the Bucs did just come back and beat them a couple weeks ago. But my heart of heart tells me the Saints are actually right now the best team in the NFC South. And if anybody non-Bucs is going to win that division, I think it's going to be the Saints. But another team that week-to-week consistency has been a major issue for them. And then the Cleveland Browns at 23. They beat a shell of a Ravens team. They moved the ball in some spots, a big run by Chubb, and Watson made some more plays this week. His best game of the 3 for sure. Defense playing better the last couple weeks against some pretty bad offenses, but I don't really know what to think about this Browns team right now. They're kind of in this weird evaluation point of their team. They do have an interesting stretch of games coming up against the Saints, against Washington, against the Steelers, Week 18, a big division rivalry there. So I think they're going to be, really trying to win these games, obviously, but not always the case for every team down the stretch. And trying to build something into next year. So they are a fascinating team to me because we know what their upside is, especially for next year. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers, they win in Carolina. They have been a very solid football team over the last 6 weeks or so. And I just want to say this, if they win out, I think it's Cleveland, Baltimore, and the Raiders is their final 3. If they win out, Mike Tomlin will have salvaged another winning season. He has never had a losing season in 15 years as a head coach. It is one of the most amazing records in this league. So I'll be pulling for Mike Tomlin. I love him as a coach. I don't know if the Steelers have the upside to win 3 straight games, but it is something to kind of pull for if you are someone that likes Mike Tomlin. And you want to see Pickett out there continuing to build and play well in the next year. But now we're going to take a tier gap up, and we are going to bring back my favorite tier, Schrodinger's Box of Cats. Let me interrupt the video real quick to tell you about my friends at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has gotten me right back into daily fantasy, and I'm sure you guys have all seen the screenshots going around of people enjoying their daily pick'em contests. At Underdog, you're only competing against yourself, unlike the salary cap leagues where you have to beat out thousands and thousands of people. Well, on Underdog, you are just picking 2 to 5 player props, anything from over-under receiving yards, interceptions, fantasy points, and you're parlaying them together. You can also buy insurance so that you're allowed to miss on one of your picks, and the payouts are huge. If you go 5 out of 5, that is 20 to 1. Buy insurance, that's 10 to 1. So you can put 2, 3, $4 or $5 on any one of these given bets, and the payouts are outstanding. So even if you don't win, it feels like you're winning because it increases your interest in any given football game. I have loved playing on Underdog Fantasy. I think you guys are too. And now if you sign up using promo code TFG, they will match up to $100 on your first deposit. That's promo code TFG at Underdog Fantasy. For those that weren't here for it, real quick, this reference is to an Austrian physicist, Erwin Schrödinger, who ran an experiment that there is a cat in a box, and there is a contraption that, when triggered, has either it has a 50% chance to kill the cat and a 50% chance to not kill the cat. And there's a theory that until you open the box, the cat is half dead, half alive. So every team in this tier, it's this mishmash of teams that are playing better football but are kind of out of the playoffs, so they're half dead, half alive. They're teams that are technically in the playoffs, but they're not playing very well or don't look to be playing very well into the playoffs. This is kind of like the tier of, I don't really care if you're in or not, you're not a Super Bowl team, right? So this tier keeps growing here in the middle of the league, but it's going to start with the New England Patriots taking a serious drop of 6 here. I'm kind of done selling myself that this team is going to be competitive against good teams. Like this offense especially, you're really feeling, I think, these last 2 or 3 weeks that their offensive coordinator is a defensive coordinator, and they just have no innovation on that side of the ball. They are figured out. Mac Jones looks nothing like the guy from last year, and their offensive line is starting to deal with a bunch more injuries. So that is just such a handicap on this team. The defense is talented. I love what they're doing with the pass rush. Josh Uche, man, it's just fun up there. So I said I wasn't going to say this, but they can be competitive against a lot of teams, but the consistency just not there. And the offense, I think, in a really bad spot right now. And then the team that miraculously beat them, the Las Vegas Raiders, going to jump up 1. Now, if you want to really go off of process, not results, probably could keep the Patriots ahead of the Raiders because that was not a touchdown by Keelan Cole at the end. All the replays showing his foot was very clearly out of bounds. Raiders fans don't even try to defend it. The bottom of his shoe is white, so it looks maybe like he's in bounds. No, he is out of bounds. That should not have been a touchdown. Cannot believe it, but you don't know that they weren't going to just throw a touchdown on the next play, right? So it doesn't always work that way. And then the mental mistake by the Patriots you all saw it, the lateral, just so uncharacteristic of a Belichick team. But we will give the Raiders a little bit of credit here, a +1. And I do believe it. I do think they were the better team. It took one play, a pick 6 by Kyle Duggar to really keep the Patriots in that game as well. So, it's not like the Patriots really dominated the Raiders. I thought the Raiders were in control for the majority of that game. Getting Darren Waller, getting Hunter Renfrow back, showing maybe what next year could look like for this offense a little bit more. For a group that is just all around playing better over the last 2 months or so. They've had a valiant effort to get back to 6-8 here, but man, does that freaking blown game against the Rams hurt right now, because that would be the difference of, they're 7-7 instead of 6-8. So that definitely hurts. And then at 19, we have the Washington Commanders. They're going to drop down 2 this week. Really, the flaws of having Taylor Heineke as their quarterback just really starting to come to the surface. The 2 turnovers in this game, that's a part of his game. And ultimately, it cost them this game. Huge mistakes. One's a defensive touchdown. One, they're right at the red zone, going to get points, and he just fumbles the ball after getting sacked after trying to do too much. So that's what he is. If you exclude quarterbacks that were, that are backups like Colt McCoy, I think Taylor Heineke is the worst quarterback actively starting in the NFL right now. So that obviously is just not sustainable. The defense, I thought, could have been better against the Giants, and have to have a game at home as well. So it's not all great there either. So this is a team that has won some tough, close games. They're in playoff position, but they're not a good football team right now. They really are not. They are the team that's half alive because of their standing and half dead because of their play on the football field. And I do think that also applies to our number 18 team, the New York Giants, who I do want to give credit. Like, they are taking a tier gap up in this week's video. I'm walking away impressed from that Giants team. I did not think they would win that game. I thought Washington just had a lot more talent. And the talent was honestly a lot closer than you would think. Other than like the receiver position, you see the pass rush for the Giants. It gives them a truly legitimate unit on that team, not just an individual player here or there. That D-line from a run defense and pass rush perspective is absolutely legit. They stole Kayvon Thibodeau from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who should have been the number 1 overall pick. And he's bursting onto the scene here in primetime football. If only he cared about football, it would just imagine how good he would be. So dumb. But that's a real unit right there. You have real coaching. Saquon Barkley getting back kind of juiced up and looking fresh and healthy is huge, because that was a big part of what I've said about the fall of the Giants. Was the run game had disappeared for 2 months, and now it is back when they had to have it in this game. So I think the Giants much more back to being that really frisky, tough team to beat that they were in that kind of winning streak where they were muddying games up, not making mistakes, and finishing games late, and having that creative play calling that stems off the threat of Saquon Barkley in the run game. So I do want to give the Giants their credit. I still think they're a fraudulent team. They're not frauds, but they're a fraudulent team. We'll see how they finish, but a huge win for the team and in a prime position to push for the playoffs here for New York, and really sealing Brian Daboll's Coach of the Year award in a year full of great candidates for that award. And then the Seattle Seahawks dropping down 4. This team has lost 4 out of 5. Defensively, they have blatant issues. They were blowing coverages in this game, really was the main takeaway. But offensively, Geno is still making big plays, but he's putting the ball in much more harm's way. The run game has not been the same. So that kind of magic that they had is falling off, and you're starting to see more of the warts on this team show up. Charles Cross, granted against Nick Bosa, really a rough day out there, so that hurts in the passing game as well. So I still think the Seahawks are a solid team, but obviously losing 4 out of 5, they haven't even been all that close to winning a game these last couple weeks. They're kind of living off that midseason run that they went on, and that was very much predicated on Geno Smith not making mistakes and playing like a freaking top 5 quarterback in the league, which he very clearly is not playing like anymore. He's still been a good starting caliber guy making some plays, but he has not been what he was in the first half of the season. And then the Bucs at 16. On one hand, they show a good half of football, 17-0. The defense is flying around. They're beating the crap out of Joe Burrow. Tom Brady playing well. Mike Evans playing well. And then the second half happens, and they go back to this kind of crappy Bucs team that we've seen them to be. I just don't know what to make of this team. Even right now, I still kind of have that fear factor of, like, you never know when Tom Brady is going to get you. Like, he all year has just kept fighting and has that short memory, and they just keep throwing and can come back from tough deficits and all that. I think the defense overall has shown really good stuff, and they obviously fell apart in the second half against the Bengals here, but I think 16 is like the perfect spot for the Bucs at this point. Such a weird team, such a weird year, still probably going to be in the playoffs. But, man, not a whole lot to really say. And Tom Brady has not played great football in the last month. The first half of the year, I really didn't think it was Brady's fault. The last half year, the last month of football, it's been much more about him not playing well on top of everybody else not playing well. Then we have the Green Bay Packers at 15. People have been saying the last couple weeks that I've had them overrated at like 18, 19, 20. When you've watched them play, this is a completely different football team than that team that went on that 5-game losing streak that could not move the ball. You look back at their last 6 games, and this has been a very good offense, like a top 10 offense, ever since Christian Watson reemerged healthy. They beat the Cowboys in overtime with 30-something points. They put up 33 on the Eagles, 28 on the Bears last week, 20 24, stopped at the 1-yard line, really moved the ball at will against the Rams. Like, offense is definitely not the issue for Green Bay right now. Rodgers is playing very well. The offensive line's been great, and that's with Bakhtiari having a weird, like, I don't know, like some Oregon deal that has kept him out. It's not his knee. But yeah, the run game's been great. It's just this defense, right? It's Joe Barry's defense, the soft zones. Packers fans especially, if you have not watched my video from last Friday about Vic Fangio defenses, really talking about Green Bay, Minnesota, might as well plug that now for Vikings fans. Like, check it out. That's going to be on full display this upcoming Saturday against the Miami Dolphins. And if Joe Barry can't make adjustments, Tua is going to be picking those middle zones apart, and Joe Barry will have ended the Packers season. And maybe that's what's best for them, is to go out with Joe Barry getting abused so that they don't convince themselves to bring him back, because that's probably the worst case scenario, is that Joe Barry is the defensive coordinator for the Packers next year. But their season is very much not dead. They need some help for sure, standings wise, but I definitely think this is an average to slightly above average football team when you look at the rest of the league right now. Then we have the New York Jets at 14, just kind of by default hanging out around here. The defense was impressive again this week. They give up the punt return touchdown to Detroit, the big kind of busted coverage at the end. Overall, I thought they played pretty well against Detroit, but that quarterback situation is just such a question mark right now. Hopefully Mike White can get back healthy. As much as I want to believe in Zach Wilson, Mike White is the better option for them. You can just see the frustration from some of these players with some of the easy stuff that Zach Wilson just isn't doing for them. I know he had some exciting flashes, but there's a lot of stuff that should have been done on the front end that would have made this day look a lot better for the Jets. So we kind of know what they are. They're a really great defense with some talent offensively. 14, kind of hanging around as some other teams had, I think, less impressive weeks. They're going to get a +2. Then the Baltimore Ravens going to drop down 1. You know, they're in kind of a weird spot because they're playing in these competitive games. They're just kind of running the ball, grinding the clock out, playing great defense. The loss against the Browns wasn't quite as bad as it looked on the scoreboard, even then 13-3. They missed 2 field goals, one of them blocked. They have a critical fumble late in this game. Tyler Huntley throws a pick in the red zone. Like, this was pretty, punch for punch against the Browns, if you will. But they're obviously waiting around, seeing if and when Lamar can get back, which is tough to rank because he might be back this week. He might not be. Ravens just kind of feel like a year away to me. Just, it's not coming together offensively, and we're going to definitely have some interesting conversations as we, look forward towards maybe moving on from Greg Roman here, which is a narrative that has been beat into the dirt. You're kind of feeling like that has run its course here. But as far as where the Ravens are at, like, they're a team that's going to have to run the ball, play great defense, and hope things bounce their way. And in a game like this against the Browns, when, like I said, missed field goals, fumbles, red zone turnovers, that's not going to be a recipe for them to win football games with or without Lamar Jackson. Yeah, kind of a weird team to discuss. Then the Tennessee Titans are going to drop down 1. They're right back to kind of, playing competitive against the Chargers, put up a physical game plan, a ton of mental toughness in that game for Ryan Tannehill to come back from the injury, come back into that game. Felt like his season might have been done. He comes back in the game. Henry continues to just run with a vengeance. They're doing enough. I can't really say they're doing enough offensively, but they do some stuff with their play calling to manufacture offense. But really just good to see them with that Vrabel defense get back to playing great, scrappy defense against a Chargers team that has been very hot lately. They do lose this game in the end, but very close. They tied it up 14-14 with like 50 seconds to go. Shout out to Roger McCreary. What a play to flip the ball back in bounds to get the interception before half. So things don't end their way. That's kind of how it goes with the Titans sometimes. They do everything right, and at the end of the day, Herbert makes a couple crazy throws, and you lose the game. But the Titans, I think, are kind of back to feeling like the Titans this week. But that said, that Ryan Tannehill injury is absolutely something to monitor. If it is a high ankle sprain, which I imagine it was, or a low ankle sprain, I've dealt with that injury before, you can kind of come back and play on it. But when you wake up the next morning, like you might not be able to walk on that thing. So it's something to monitor with Tannehill is, do they go to Malik Willis now for the rest of the year? Very, very curious about that. And that gets even more interesting with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who now control their own destiny. This is getting real. They started super hot. I think I had them ranked 10th at their best, and then they go and lose like 5 straight, right? And now they're not just winning games, they are beating really good football teams and doing it in a way that feels sustainable with this offense. Trevor Lawrence is playing like one of the 5 to 10 best quarterbacks in the league right now. I don't think that's crazy to say. I mean, his ability to carve apart defenses, he's starting to make more plays on the improvisational side of things too in these big moments. Unfortunately, one did lead to a fumble that almost cost them this game. But Doug Peterson's been just in his bag from a play calling perspective. He feels like he's back to that really good play caller that it felt like earlier in the year. So it's been a massive swing roller coaster season for the Jags. But this is legit, man. They are very scary, and these AFC teams do not want to have to go against this offense right now. And that's fun, but obviously what they're building for next year too starts to feel like, this could get kind of special here for Jacksonville. But that wraps up Schrodinger's box of cats. A very wide tier. We have 11 teams there. So now we only have one team in our next tier, and this is the Roar Restored tier. Obviously, the Detroit Lions staying put at 10. I don't think they dominated the Jets or anything, but a lot of mental toughness to show continued good coaching to pull through and win that game. They dial up the beautiful play, I don't know if it was leak or just a play action. The guy got lost, but busted coverage by the Jets. Great situational play calling, gets the big touchdown to take the lead in the end. And really, defense this week playing better, turning into a much more complete football team. The Lions are red hot and kind of playing with nothing to lose at this point after it looked like they were toast, right? Like maybe in the Bryce Young sweepstakes, like week 7, and now they're in prime position to make the playoffs. So I don't know what to do with them from a tier perspective, because they are both, they're not half dead at this point. They are alive as far as standings are concerned, and they're alive as far as how they're playing. So they're absolutely a legit playoff caliber team, but I don't see them as like a Super Bowl team at this point. So they're kind of in their own tier. Our next tier are teams that I do think have a little bit more projected upside and sustainability to maybe win a Super Bowl, whereas I just don't quite feel that way about Detroit. That seems like going a step too far. But let's get into that next tier, and that's going to start with the Miami Dolphins at number 9. So staying put here, they lose in Buffalo, but put up a great fight. And I kept them in this tier of teams that I think could win a Super Bowl, would need to get a little bit lucky, but have that sort of upside, because I held faith in kind of the coaching and the playmakers and what we've seen from this team throughout the course of the season, not trying to focus too much on a couple of ugly losses against the Chargers and the Niners. And I love their adjustments this week, pushing the ball outside the numbers a little bit more, knowing the Bills were going to try to take away the middle of the field, and running the ball so much better. So love those adjustments from McDaniel, and going into Buffalo, losing at the very end, not really too much to worry about there. I thought they played well and are still a damn good football team that anybody should be afraid of in the playoffs, Buffalo included. They were very close to losing that game. Then the LA Chargers at 8, pulling through against the Titans. The biggest thing for me about the Chargers this year is they are winning these close games that just, it has not felt like they've been able to do in the Justin Herbert regime, really. And I'm not saying that's been on Herbert, but these close game wins have been thanks to Herbert. I mean, we've saw what he's done in some critical moments this year. This game, 14-14, and honestly, Herbert did not have his best game, one of his worst of the year, I would say. But when it mattered, tie game, 50 seconds left, he made some fuck you throws at the end of that game to set up a game-winning field goal. Really impressive. And the defense, honestly, Staley and that group has really bunkered down and impressed me in that regard the last 5 weeks, making some adjustments to their scheme, blitzing more, pressing more, not just running the Fangio stuff every week. And it's really working. So they are a good football team. I don't think they're a great football team, but right now in a prime position to make the playoffs, the Chargers. Then the Minnesota Vikings, they're going to stay put at 7. I don't really know what to take away from that Colts game because, like I said, obviously getting down 33-0 against the Colts is noteworthy, but the way it happened was like just not sustainable stuff. Fumbles, fake punt failures, a 4th-and-1 stuff. All of it, the bad fumble crap, the refs blowing the whistle way too early, just a crazy, wild game, insane from an entertainment standpoint. But my view on the Vikings has changed nothing. Love the playmakers offensively. Kirk's having a good year, and defensively, I do not trust them. So great game, but my takeaways aren't all that much. My opinion on them has not changed really at all. They are going to have to get lucky if they want to go on a Super Bowl run. I think it's possible, but unlikely, and that's why they're in this tier. But the Dallas Cowboys are going to drop down into this tier. We had them in our top tier the last few weeks, but they are not a top-tier football team right now. We see them almost lose to the Houston Texans last week. They lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. And this defense is just not reliable right now. The offense, I think, is the offense. They're pretty consistent moving the ball. Dak's just kind of picking teams apart. I think the idea that they have offensive troubles has been kind of the narrative around this team. My thoughts on this offense really haven't changed at all. I know they've had some injuries to the offensive line, but what's different is this defense is getting gashed. The run defense has not been very good. They are down corners in the secondary. You're seeing Calvin Joseph get exploited back there. You're not feeling like this is that all ever-present dominant pass rush that they were in the first half of the year. So things are crumbling on that side of the ball, and that's putting too much pressure on Dak Prescott. So that's what's dropping them out of these Super Bowl favorites tier. Now, we know what they look like at their best. They can dominate both sides of the ball any given week, but can they put it together and play complementary football? That's the question at this point, and we're too close to the playoffs for me to expect that to happen. And then the Niners climbing up to the 5th spot. I can't put them in the Super Bowl favorites tier because I still watch the offense, and as much as I love Brock Purdy and ranking them in the top 5 and saying they are certainly a team that can win a Super Bowl is giving respect to a 7th-round rookie starting at quarterback for the rest of this team's season, most likely, right? So I am not a Brock Purdy hater here, but you can see the weaknesses in the Niners offense when you dial up their third and long situations against the Seahawks. They don't have a lot of passing concepts they're comfortable with. It's not just Purdy. Their offensive line is not great in pass protection if it's not play action. Purdy he doesn't have a great arm down the field, and he's a 7th-round rookie, right? So it is all about let's call it what it is, the Shanahanigans, the gimmicks, the double screens that lead to a wide open George Kittle, the play action where George Kittle busts a coverage for the Seahawks. It's about that stuff happening. It's about the defense forcing a fumble and setting them up on the 10-yard line. They got to play that complementary football. They have their limitations, though, that I would be worried about going on a deep playoff run. But teams I'm not worried about going on a deep playoff run are going to find themselves inside my Super Bowl favorites tier, where we have no movement this week. So it's the Chiefs at 4. They take care of business this week against the Texans, which it's hard to call it that. I mean, at what point do we worry about the Chiefs? They were given a hard time by Denver last week. The Texans gave them a hard time this week. The defense is certainly worrying me, but as we've seen with the Chiefs over the years, when they've been to AFC championships and been to Super Bowls, we've seen this kind of stuff before, but it doesn't always feel like it matters because you got number 15 under center. who you can make mistakes and still win when that's your guy. Now, they had to count on a fumbled punt by the Texans for that to happen. They were very close to losing this game, so they do need to pick things up. I think they will if we're projecting forward defensively, but they are slumping right now on that side of the ball. That's for damn sure, but I do still have them in this tier. Then the Buffalo Bills at number 3. Another team that they have their spots defensively that can be picked on. You know, some of the guys in the secondary there especially, but they're such a nasty team. Josh Allen is just so remarkable when he's on, and I feel very good about where the Bills are at right now. Another big win against the Dolphins in a just really great back and forth game that felt like a playoff atmosphere. I think that's going to be a game that, having that in their back pocket, some of the adjustments they made with the run game, the QB run game, were really big for them. And then the Cincinnati Bengals at 2. They do lose some edge players here, hoping to get those guys back for the playoffs, but it's not just Joe Burrow and these receivers and how well they're playing on that side of the ball, because that side really speaks for itself. But this defense with Lou Anarumo, I've just been blown away by their cohesiveness on that side of the ball. They can really mix things up. They make things so tough up front. They don't let you run the ball. They put you in these third and long situations. And then once they get you there, Lou Anarumo is so good at identifying how he wants to attack certain offenses. He can go man coverage. He'll go into like the split safety Fangio stuff. He'll go press cover 3. He'll go fire zone. Like, he will do whatever it takes, whenever it takes to get the job done. I think that speaks volumes about a defensive coordinator. So just playing very complimentary football. The Bengals feel like a team that they're not afraid of anybody. They have a confidence about them that they're, even when they get down, they're going to find a way to adjust, and they have so many different ways to beat you on both sides of the ball that it makes it easier on them. So I just love where the Bengals are at right now, and I think they play the Bills this week, right? So that's going to be awesome. And then the Eagles at number 1. Now, I saw Jalen Hurts dealing with a shoulder sprain. He took some nasty hits in that game against the Bears. So you obviously hope, that becomes priority number 1 for the Eagles, is making sure he can get back healthy. We'll monitor that situation. But they earned this number 1 spot last week, and I don't think they did anything to lose it. A couple of uncharacteristic mistakes from Jalen Hurts early in this game, and maybe it was the injury that led to some of those bad throws that kind of kept the Bears in this early. But we're going to keep the Eagles at 1 for now, because I think they earned it last week and should maintain that spot. So there's your Week 16 rankings. I don't know if we're going to have a power rankings next week with Christmas weekend. The plan for me and my wife, Anna, is to go to Illinois to be with her family for Christmas. Big winter storm coming in, though, so I don't know if we're going to make it. We'll see. But if I'm out of town, I'm probably just going to skip the rankings next week, take some time to be with the family. So if you don't see this next week, that is why. Please do hit that like button down below. Really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later in the week for more football content. Peace out.